Chisanga Malata of the Sun here with a man who needs no introduction, the man with whom this card this weekend is built around. I'm talking about UFC men's bantamweight champion Aljamain Sterling.
Aljamain Sterling!
Aljamain, how are you doing?
Doing good. Eating some small meals right now. Just getting ready for the fight. Right now, it's about focus on getting the weight down and get ready to go out there and have some fun.
And you talk about going out there and having fun. You were just out there just less than 3 months ago against Henry Cejudo. Are you happy to be so active, or is part of you wishing that maybe this fight come later on during the year?
I'm happy about the activity. I know I said some stuff in the beginning, but after everything was kind of laid out and the way my body feels now, it actually worked out. You know, I think having more cage time makes it a little bit easier, makes you more familiar, and I think it benefits me a lot going into this. You know, when I first started my MMA career as an amateur and as a pro, I took short notice fights a lot, and I fought maybe 4 or 5 times a year. You know, so I had a lot of experience really early on, and the best way to get experience is getting in there. So I think this is going to benefit me going into this matchup. And now I get to smash this guy. He thought it was going to benefit him, but it's actually benefiting me.
Fair enough. And you touched on it there when you walked back into the shot that you're eating small meals now. I, for one, am absolutely baffled at how you've managed to drop so much weight in such a short space of time. Talk to me about the ins and outs of how you've been able to do that, because you went from I don't want to say fluffy, but you've gone from fluffy to lean and mean, if you know what I mean.
I guess that's one way to describe it. It's not easy, but I do think having like the time to do it so quickly, or should I say a short amount of time to do it from the last weight cut, I think it makes it a little bit easier so that all the weight didn't stick the way that it did last time. Because I knew in the back of my mind, I was like, okay, this is the date that they want. I need to make sure that I'm at least somewhat training and somewhat monitoring the intake of food that I'm having. And I think when I did that, it made it a little bit easier for the weight to just kind of slide off. Like my body was a little bit more familiar with it, as opposed to having the longer layoff where you're fighting once a year kind of a thing. And I think Sean might have a little bit more of a difficult weight cut than I'm going to have for this time around. And with that being said, everything is going great. The UFC PI team has been doing an amazing job. Big shout out to Charles, man. He's huge when it comes to that. Him, the whole team there, and they have everything dialed in. My weight's on point, and I think this might be one of my easier weight cuts yet.
And one narrative, I don't know if you believe this going into this fight, that I believe is one of the biggest ones ahead of fight night is a lack of respect for you now, because you've been champion for 2 years now. You've beaten arguably one of the most talked about and feared guys in Peter Yan twice. You've beaten Henry Cejudo. You've beaten TJ Dillashaw, who's in contention to be the greatest bantamweight of all time. Do you think that you're getting the respect that you deserve now, or do you think that that will come with a win over Sean?
If you can't respect winning, I don't know what else to tell anybody. I mean, at the end of the day, numbers don't lie, and I think my numbers speak for themselves. I don't ever hear anyone complain about winning a basketball game by an OT shot or technicality shot, or winning because a player was hurt. So if a guy comes out there, I fight the best competition that they put in front of me, and I do my job, and I do a damn good job at doing it. So for me, I think you can respect that, and it stops right there for me. And whatever. I mean, the more I win, I think the better it does for that case. But I'm comfortable in my own skin. My bank account is comfortable where it's at, and that's from all the wins. So to me, it's all good, man. We're doing a great job setting myself up for my future and for my exit when I finish retiring from the sport. So if people want to say what they want to say, let's like arguing about who's the best person at their job in a 500 company. It's a very weird thing. It's like the stats speak for themselves. Just because you don't like the way that they did it doesn't mean the results change, you know? And I did my job, and that's all that matters. At the end of the day, my name's gonna be in those history books for the rest of time.
And speaking of deserving, what's your take on Sean getting a title shot with only one win over a top 15 guy? Granted, that was the former champion in Peter Yan, but again, there's a narrative out there that potentially this has come a bit too early for him, and he's potentially been fast-tracked to it.
Well, I guess it's up to me to go out there and prove that he doesn't belong. I do think he does belong. I just think he had a teacher's pet of a way to get here. And, he had the Dana White privilege. I think we've all heard it all under the sun already. He hasn't cut his teeth into the sport the way that we have, and fought some of the best guys in the world the way that we have to earn their title shot. And I think that's all by design. And it's up to me to take the design back to the manufacturers and say, here, you need to fix this.
And one thing that you mentioned recently, you said that your days are numbered at 135 pounds. Would you be happy to walk away from the division with the resume that you have, or would you like to add some names on there? But obviously, you're thinking of your body going forward.
I think my resume is as deep as it comes. I think I probably have the deepest resume in terms of overall skill set in modern MMA. I mean, since the UFC's inception of the WEC, I think I have the best resume out of everybody in the bantamweight division. And I'm saying this based on stats, based on beating the most amount of top 5 guys, beating the most amount of former champions. I don't think there's anybody else who has done what I've done in modern MMA. I mean, if you want to compare me to Dominic Cruz, I understand that and I respect that, because I do think those wins that he has over there as a champion, because they came in and fought for the belt, I think that's the only guy who would have an argument. But that's since the olden age of MMA. We're talking modern day MMA. I don't think there's anyone else who has done what I've accomplished. I mean, there's other guys out there like Cheeto. Cheeto's got a lot of wins, but look at all the guys Cheeto's beaten. Most of them are not in the UFC. Look at most of the guys O'Malley has beaten. Most of them are not in the UFC. Or should I say, all of them are not in the UFC. The guys that he's beaten, none of them in the UFC except for one guy, Petr Yan. Everybody else is gone. And you look at my resume, Pedro's still there. Cody Stamen is still there. Henry's still here. Petr Yan is still there. Who else, man? I'm drawing a blank. This is just how many names. Corey Sandhagen. The list just goes on. You know what I mean? It's the gift that keeps on giving. And I think I've done a pretty damn good job of fighting the toughest competitions that the guys could put in front of me. And I survived the test of time. There's not a lot of guys who could stick around the UFC as long as we have done it. And I'm very, very proud of that. So I think after this, I'm done with Sean. I think I'm time to move up, look for some new challenges. And, I want to stay excited. I don't want to be just fighting just to fight. I want to fight because I'm excited. I want to fight because the paper is good and because the opportunity is good. When you go out there just to compete and there's nothing really on the line, I think that's when things start to fall apart. That's where people start to get hurt. Like I'm actually fighting for something for this, and there's a big opportunity for myself to catapult myself into a new stratosphere. And that's what I plan on doing on August 19th.
All right, Aljamain, for this portion of the interview, I'm well aware you're going to be asked the same old questions throughout fight week. So this section is dedicated to the fans who might not necessarily know the ins and outs of Aljamain Sterling. So first question of this segment is, when was your first ever fight that you can recall? It could be with your siblings, it could be a street fight or whatever. When was your first ever fight?
First ever fight? I mean, I had so many siblings, so for me to use them, there's so many. There's so many fights with that. But first ever, I'm gonna say real fight. Maybe I guess one of my good friends when we were kids, like elementary school.
Okay. Next one is, what is Aljamain Sterling's guilty pleasure?
Ooh. Well, I'm addicted to a couple things. I'm addicted to sex is one. So for me and my lady, we go at it, and definitely like Jamaican food, man. I love me some good Jamaican food, and maybe drinking. Actually, got my own bottle, So Funk Harbor, baby.
Fair enough. I won't comment on that, but all right. If you can recall, what was the time in the career when you felt the most vulnerable?
The most vulnerable I've ever felt, probably after my first pro loss. I lost to Brian Caraway, and that was the first day I cried after the fight and after the fight. More so because my friends kept talking about it, kept saying, "Oh, you could have done this," and it's like just hearing people that know nothing about the sport try to commentate because you had one loss and it was a split decision. So had it gone the other way, it was just a mind fuck where you're like, damn, I didn't realize people were all experts in something they know nothing about. But if it had went my way in the split decision, nobody would probably have said anything. And it's just one of those weird sports where everyone has an opinion when you lose, and when you're winning, no one really says anything because you're winning. So yeah, that was probably the most vulnerable, I think.
All right. And what was your dream fight? This could be against any fighter of any era in any martial arts discipline. Who do your dream fight have been against?
Dominic Cruz, maybe between him and Uriah Faber at 135. Those two.
Okay, and final one for me. I appreciate of the time, and I can see you're enjoying what little portion of the meal that you've got there. Stylistically, how do you foresee this fight with Sean playing out, and how do you plan on ending the fight and registering your fourth title defense?
Stylistically, I think Sean's going to use a lot of footwork. He's going to try to stay long with his attacks. A lot of feints. Very going to be trying to look for knees up the middle, front kicks up the middle. He's not really one to throw jumping knees, but I could see him trying to implement that a little bit. And for me, just take my time, inch my way in, and as I get closer to the target, take him down, beat him up, get him out of there.
And what round do you foresee that happening in?
Round 2.